Tampa Bay Buccaneers from the 48-yard line. Second down, 13. Brady lobs one downfield. Caught ball by Gronkowski inside the 20 to the 15-10. Gronkowski to the 5 to the 4-yard line. Holy guacamole.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Throws up the middle. It's intercepted at the 40. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25, 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. No. We're going to win the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, baby!
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty. Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the bye week here on the Cannon Fire Podcast. I am your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host, the Philly Bucs fan himself, Mr. Evan Wanish, and another guy joining the show this week as we answer your questions is none other than good friend of the show, honorary third member at this point, James Hill, a.k.a. MrBucsNation. We have just been laughing our ass off before we hit record, man. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. Yeah. So I mean, you know, I don't know why James. He's like really excited over there. He's
dude. I don't know if you got ants in your pants, but it really threw me off because I hit record. And I'm like, all right, guys, go ahead and mute your mics. I'm going to hit record real quick. We'll get this puppy rolling. I hit record, music's rolling, and James just puts his headphones down, gets up, and walks away. And I'm like, where the hell is he going?
I didn't know what was going on. I threw my arms up in the air. I was like, what in the world is he doing?
I'm just happy that I can eat actual food.
Yeah,
yes,
James Hill, by the way, if you guys haven't been checking out his great content over here on YouTube, just a week removed from the TB12 method. How did that treat you?
Disgusting. It was fine. It was fine. There's some stuff I would recommend. There's some stuff I wouldn't recommend. Overall, it was okay.
Okay, what was? Give me your best part and your worst part of it.
Best part was probably hydration, and then probably the waking up early. Worst part, nutrition. Just because, like, I tried to literally follow the book to the letter, which is probably not the best way to do it because you are so freaking limited into what you could eat.
Well, I feel like, especially if you're coming off of it kind of cold turkey, like, let's face it, you know, your sleep schedule going into that, you're a vampire. So to adjust yourself to have to wake up at 6 a.m. and then everything else just kind of changes on top of that, I'm sure it was a little bit of a struggle. I definitely couldn't do it. That's why I'm not a 6-time Super Bowl champ.
Yeah,
that's right.
I guess James is.
I've won 6 Super Bowls.
Do you feel any closer to being a Hall of Famer?
So my rings are actually in the mail.
Okay.
You know, I was a part of those 6 Super Bowl teams now. Apparently,
wow.
You know, it's been rewritten.
Was really delayed. That was
this part of the full commitment. It's like the contract they have you sign going into it, right?
Yeah, it's been rewritten in the history books now. You know, so I'm very happy to be a part of history. You know, I'm gonna show off my Super Bowl rings when I get them in, and yeah, overall. Okay experience, you know, definitely.
With all that being said, welcome to our biggest guest of the year here on the show. 6-time Super Bowl champion James Hill joins us. It is the bye week, guys, as I had mentioned before. So this week, well, we wanted to open up the hotline and get some voicemails, but we got a resounding 0 phone calls this week. So we kind of did it the old-fashioned way. You guys sent some questions in over on our social media. By the way, you can follow us there, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. But we got your questions. And hopefully we've got some answers for you. But before we get into those, we do have a little bit of news. And this broke a couple hours ago. The Buccaneers
broke James's heart.
Oh yeah, this was some hard stuff for the Super Bowl champion over there. But the Buccaneers waive wide receiver / punt returner Jadon Mickens. He went on waivers today at 4 p.m. And last I heard, nobody's picked him up yet. But does this move surprise either one of you?
No. But
shocked.
I mean, ladies and gentlemen, you should have seen, because me and Rhett knew that Mickens was waived, but James did not.
Man.
If you have any background, Mickens had done an interview on James's channel, and they were talking or whatever. Like, they had a pretty good relationship. They weren't best friends, but he went on his channel, did a show. So James did not know that he was waived. So we told him, and he didn't believe us. And you just should have seen his reaction. Oh man, I wish we were recording it. It was an all-time reaction. But James, what What are you feeling right now, man?
He'll end up back on the practice squad probably. It's fine. It's cool. No worries. Sad.
You basically got confirmation, right?
Well, yeah,
Yeah, text
whatever.
him up,
It's
man.
cool.
You got his number.
Well, but so what? I don't know. Yeah, it was a little surprising because I thought that the guys who have been back there returning have pretty much given the same, if not maybe slightly worse returning results. So I don't know, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I hate to ask this, and we're not going to spend too much time on it, but a lot of people last remember Jadon Mickens. Well, he was placed on the COVID reserve list 1 week, even though he had come out and said he was fully healthy. And the way that he had said it, he was pretty outspoken. Do you think that played a factor at all in the decision? Because you cannot sit here and tell me with a straight face that Kenyon Barner is a better option returning kicks than Jadon Mickens was.
Kenyon Barner is a better option returning kicks than Jadon Mickens was.
Very much disagree, sir. Very much disagree. They're both smart returners. I'll give them that.
Kenyon Barner wasn't very smart at the end of the Rams game when he should have, just kind of called the fair catch there. But that's neither here nor there.
Kenyon Barner has a kickoff return and a punt return in his career. Jay Mickens is not.
A kickoff and a punt.
Yeah, not at the same time, but like in his career,
he has
he has both of them. Kickoff return for a touchdown and a punt return. For a touchdown.
You didn't say for a touchdown.
Yeah, you didn't say the touchdown
return
part.
And a punt return.
Oh, wow.
I was like, wait, what?
I thought that was pretty self-explanatory, but
you got to remember I'm stupid.
I got to spoon feed it to you, I guess.
You got to remember who you're talking to here. But I don't know. Probably not. I probably didn't play a factor into it. I mean, because it's not like he went I don't know. It's not like he went crazy overboard. I mean, we've seen, I'm sure, other players be critical of the protocols and things like that one way or another. I don't think.
I know that there's some other guys on this. There's some other guys on this roster who could return kicks who have a history of going crazy / overboard on social media. I'm sure we're well aware.
How are we not sure that Jadon Mickens isn't crazy?
I'm
just gonna leave it there.
To just stuff we don't. Now, come on, now this is slander.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, thus concludes the Jadon Mickens saga. Before we get James storming out of here like he tried to do before we hit record.
Maybe that was why he left.
Yeah, I know he was just so torn up about it. So let's get into these questions. We got a lot of great ones. We're gonna go in depth here, and this first one I think is probably the best one to kick things off with, just because it's still being talked about. It's a bye week, and it's a long bye week. Granted that we're coming off of 2 losses in a row. There's a lot of questions, a lot more questions than answers at this point. But I think this one will kind of help everybody just kind of, big deep breath here. This comes from @John Mark on Instagram. He says, how much of the tension between BA and Brady is real, and how much of it is just the media stirring it up? I will say this. When I look at this, dude, it's got to be like a 70-30 media with the majority there. The media is definitely bored, and we've talked about this on the show before when the news really started to first break a couple of weeks ago that there was this unspoken tension. I think when you're losing football games, there's going to be tension between any quarterback and your head coach. But I feel like we've said it countless times at this point, but we kind of knew coming into the season that this entire year, especially on the offensive side of the ball, was going to be an uphill battle. And like the process that we see right now that I guess is being called tension is literally just them trying to figure it out. I mean, am I wrong? Do you disagree?
No, I think it might be maybe 60-40, like media, but I think that it's just like you said, it's them trying to see what works. So I'm not really going to get too concerned about it until, I mean, let's say Bruce Arians returns and let's say Tom Brady returns next year, which are both very likely to happen. If you start hearing about it next year, then I think it becomes a concern. But yeah, right now I think it's just them just trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. So you should, I mean, that's what I think is concerning, that it's this late in the season. So you basically should know what works and what doesn't. But right now they just haven't seemed to found that right mix yet. So hopefully they do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not going to give a percentage or anything, but yeah, I definitely feel like it's more media driven than anything. At the end of the day, they all want to win, and I will say this is kind of some similar stuff that we used to hear whenever Tom Brady was in New England.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's just kind of the national. It's just kind of the national media or whoever, some local, some national, just trying to stir the pot. They did it with the Patriots whenever they would lose a couple of games in a row. They'd say, "Oh, what's going on? Is this it? What's going on here?" And we see a similar thing now. It's just to get headlines. If you put Tom Brady's name in any headline, you're going to get clicks, and things like that. So that does definitely play a factor into it. Tom Brady says his relationship is fine. Bruce Arians says his relationship is fine. I know it's not always taken at face value and things like that, but I see no reason to believe that they would have super intense problems with each other after only really getting to know each other for about 8 months now.
Yeah,
something along those lines. So Tom,
and they haven't really spent as much time together as they normally would because of the restrictions.
Right. And Tom came here because he wanted to work in this system. He wanted to work with Bruce Arians. He wanted to work with all these guys. Like, Tom knew what he was getting himself into. He's not an idiot. Bruce Arians is not an idiot. Like, at the end of the day, these guys are all very driven to win some football games, and that's something that can bring them together. So they're going to work on that, and they're going to try their best to collaborate and figure something out. So yeah. I think it is pretty overblown.
No, yeah, definitely. I think it's just all of the elements coming together that we had talked about way before the season started. Like, first off, it comes with the territory of having Tom Brady. Like you said, James, anytime you put Tom Brady's name in a news story, it's going to get clicks, it's going to get views. But I think Tom Brady by himself, all of the, factors of him being with a new team, new system, new playbook, new coach, new teammates, new atmosphere, new culture, all of this stuff, on top of him already being Tom Brady, and on top of that, him being 43 years old, and the fact that we'll probably never, ever, ever see another 43-year-old play at his level in the history of the NFL ever again. Like, I really just don't think we'll ever see it happen. Maybe, when one day these guys are biomechanically engineered, it'll happen a little bit more frequently, but, the what's the word I'm thinking of? The attraction of it, the pure spectacle of it all is exactly why it feels like Tampa Bay is just under a microscope right now. And, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I really wish we could just go back to mediocre coverage, get mentioned on Good Morning Football once every 2 hours, and that's it. But no, the Bucs are pretty much the top story anywhere you look, whether they're doing good or bad. So when you don't live up to the expectations set by the media at the beginning of the year, I think it's going to make it feel a little bit easier, to feel like the world is falling around you. But Bucs are 7-5, coming off of a bye week. I have a feeling that the relationship between Brady and BA isn't so torn up that they can't come up with a game plan this week and hopefully bring it to Minnesota this Sunday. But thanks for the question, John Mark. We really do appreciate you. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. It also has to do with the quarterback position. This comes from Ozzy4335. Do we draft a quarterback next year? Evan, if you want to take this one.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a tough one to give a direct answer for, just because there's so many things that can happen between now and the draft. If I had to say, like, the first 2 rounds, I don't think that's likely. But I think as you get later on in the draft, round 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe they draft one. So, I mean, if you're talking about one in, like, the first 2 rounds, I don't think that's likely. So, like, you're not going to see, like, a Kyle Trask or a Mac Jones or a trade up for Zach Wilson or Trey Lance or anything like that. I don't think you'll see anything like that. But maybe in, like, the 4th round, if somebody's there and they didn't really expect them to be there, maybe they take a flyer on them. But, yeah, the first, like, even, like, 3 rounds, I'll say, is not very likely. I think that the Bucs are going to try to really address their needs with those first 3 picks.
I'm going to say at most a 6th or a 7th round draft pick is invested in the quarterback position. So here's why. Tom Brady's obviously under contract for next season. Blaine Gabbert and Ryan Griffin both have expiring contracts after this year. Probably bring back one of them to probably be the backup quarterback. But you also got to remember, Josh Rosen's on that practice squad. Once he gets elevated to the active roster at the end of the season, whenever that may happen, if he doesn't get signed to another team's roster, I mean, that's kind of like having a drafted quarterback right there. He's played very minimal amounts in 2 seasons. He's only, 23 years old right now, maybe 24 whenever the season's done. That's just kind of like having a late drafted quarterback who's just a little bit older anyway.
Yeah.
And there's there's your developmental guy who you can maybe start after Tom Brady leaves. So I don't know if that's the full plan, but in my opinion, I mean, you've already got Tom. They like Blaine Gabbert at the backup position. And then you have Josh Rosen, who is that young developmental guy. There's not necessarily a want or a need there for a developmental guy unless they just feel Rosen isn't it. And if that's the case, maybe 6th, 7th round guy. If they do feel Rosen's the guy, then I would say not at all.
And I'm glad you brought Rosen up because I wanted to bring him up as well since you had mentioned it. I don't think they really try and splurge for a quarterback this season, Brady being under contract, and then of course you have Rosen. But the question for me then becomes, you have Josh Rosen sitting on the practice squad. He'll probably dress every Sunday next year if he's still here, and Ryan Griffin is no longer on this team, or Blaine Gabbert, or whichever route they choose to go there. But from the point of view of Josh Rosen, do you think he's going to want to play the long game with this? Because that's what it comes down to. Like, I think if he shows interest and he tells the Bucs that he's interested in kind of being their guy and, they pitch that to him, sure, I think they serve it up to him on a silver platter. But if he doesn't, and there isn't any conversation like that, and another team signs him, where do they go from there? I guess that obviously puts a lot more emphasis on getting a quarterback that next draft. But, like, with Josh Rosen, you know what I mean? It's safe to write him off and say, yeah, he's our future guy, but we know how the NFL works. I don't think Josh Rosen cares. I think he wants to start. If a team comes to him before the end of this year or the start of next season and says, hey, we want to sign you to a starter contract, he doesn't give a damn about being the heir to Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. He's going to go play where he's needed. So do you think it's a viable option at this point, or is it still kind of too far away to write off that, Rosen is the guy of the future if they can't get a good quarterback in the draft?
I don't think Rosen has a choice. I don't think anybody would offer Rosen a starting job at this point. There's so much quarterback talent around the league right now, right? That we're seeing a lot of really good quarterbacks just result to be backups. Like Tyrod Taylor, that guy could be a starting quarterback. Justin Herbert's just amazing. And there's always
lung, but
the Chargers team doctor made sure he wasn't starting.
Right, but the point is that there's just so much like good quarterback talent around the league right now, and it's
Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Kyle Trask. That's a QB heavy class coming up, so that's even more talent.
Right. And, Sam Darnold is going to be probably a backup somewhere now. He's not going to be a starter. He's a former number 3 overall pick. Gardner Minshew for the Jaguars is probably going to have to be a backup somewhere now. He's a high-tier backup who's done. Yeah, Dwayne Haskins. There's literally so much talent that a lot of high-tier guys are just getting pushed down the depth chart out of just sheer, unfortunate circumstances, So I think I would say that if I was Rosen, I would look at the situation and go, Tampa's probably my best bet right now because after Brady's gone, they don't have anybody, and they're going to win with Brady, so they can't draft a high-tier guy to replace him. That's where I come in. Would be my thought process.
And you say that's where you come in as James Hill, the guy that just did a week on the TB12 diet.
And he won 6 Super Bowls.
Yeah, won 6 Super Bowls. That's where you come in, Buckaroo.
What I'm saying is that it's going to be me versus Josh Rosen for that starting quarterback battle after the 2021 season. So 2022, me versus Josh Rosen. Just kind of look out for it, I guess,
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the future of the franchise, I'm glad he could be here on the show today answering your questions. But I'm really glad that we talked about Josh Rosen. Honestly, anytime we talk about Josh Rosen, I get a little bit excited just because, the thing coming into this year is like, oh, well, the Bucs are selling out, so it's not like...
Hey, Rhett.
Yeah.
What if Josh Rosen's good?
Oh, dude, I'll be so happy. It's crazy because I wasn't even that big of a Josh Rosen fan, but I will agree that he got kind of a short end of the stick. But, I mean, I just get excited because we don't spend a lot of time talking about the future of this team. And it feels like for the first 3 years of this podcast, we were like looking towards the future because you didn't know what it would hold when you finish a year 7-9 or 5-11 or whatever it may be. So I don't know. It just gets me a little giddy. So anytime we get to talk about Josh Rosen, I really enjoy it.
I will say one great bonding moment for me and Evan is that we both love Josh Rosen and think that he can be good.
There we go.
Well, we'll see what happens.
We don't all hate everything about each other on this show, guys.
There are some bonding moments. You just have to look in between the lines.
There you go. Let's move on to the next question here. This comes from Lucas Butler 21, and it has to do with that coaching staff. Will there be a change on the coaching staff this offseason? So not necessarily a head coaching change, but maybe a coordinator loses a job. Maybe you see somebody promoted from within. But James, wanted to kind of have you lead this one off. Do you think there's going to be any changes along that big coaching staff this offseason?
I would say the only way there is if one of the Bucs assistants or coordinators gets a head coaching job, or they get some lucrative offer to go somewhere else. If Todd Bowles gets a head coaching job or something along those lines, or Byron Leftwich gets a head coaching job, something along those lines, then you may see some movement. Aside from that, there's nothing I could really think of. I mean, if Byron Leftwich went somewhere, or he took a better, he took a job that he feels is better, or something along those lines, whatever it may be, you may see some shifting. Maybe Harold Goodwin gets put at offensive coordinator. He was Bruce Arians' offensive coordinator for 5 seasons in Arizona. Maybe they bring in Freddie Kitchens to be an offensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator, I don't know, maybe Casey Rogers. Maybe they want to give Larry Foote a shot. Also, another thing that they just did recently, maybe they make A.Q. Shipley a full-time coach for this team for another year. Something like that. I know he's joining the coaching, or he might have already joined it, or he is joining it, or something along those lines. But point is that if there isn't, if one of these guys doesn't get a head coaching job, I would probably say no.
So James took the promotion route. I'm going to go the route of what's the probability of one of them being fired. So just straight out, just fired. Like, we're moving on. So I think the only way that there would possibly be a head coaching change, there's like a firing, is if the Bucs collapse here and miss the playoffs completely. But
finish
let's
7-9.
Yeah, like that. They lose these 4 games. That is unacceptable. And I think the Glazers would see it that way too. But so let's say they make the playoffs, and let's say they lose in the first round, right? The only one I could really see, I think Todd Bowles' job would be pretty much safe. I could see them maybe firing Byron Leftwich. That's the only one, maybe, and I still don't think it's likely. So if I had to guess, I would say this coaching staff is going to be here next year pretty much intact. But the one that I think has the least amount of security is probably Leftwich, just because, especially if the offense seemed to really sputter, Leftwich might be the guy that just falls on the sword. So a name, just like James said, Harold Goodwin, maybe if they wanted to promote within to offensive coordinator. He's already the assistant head coach, so I think you could just put him to offensive coordinator, let him call the plays if you wanted. If Todd Bowles were to leave for a head coaching job or get fired, a name that I would throw out there is not in the Bucs organization right now. What's going to happen in Chicago? Because the Chicago Bears defensive coordinator right now is Chuck Pagano, who is a great friend of Bruce Arians. So
you remember that year in Indianapolis?
Yeah, of course. That was the year that everything changed for Bruce Arians. That's right after that year he got the Cardinal job, and it was all from there. So I think if Chicago decides to move on from Nagy, they're likely moving on from their entire coaching staff. And if Bowles leaves for a head coaching job, I think Pagano makes a ton of sense for defense coordinator. He runs a similar system to Bowles, and Arians and Pagano obviously go way back.
Now, another situation I wanted to ask, let's look at the possibility that there is a firing. Maybe Byron Leftwich gets fired. Personally, I don't think that Todd Bowles is going to get a lot of head coaching offers, so I think his job is a little bit more secure. But if Byron Leftwich is the odd man out there on that staff, we've never gotten a clear answer, nor do I think we'll ever get a clear answer on how much push Tom Brady has on this team. But do you think there would be a push from Tom to get a familiar face in there, maybe like a Josh McDaniels at a coordinator position?
Well, McDaniels ain't coming to be an offensive coordinator.
No, so he's looking for a head coach job.
Yeah, that wouldn't happen. Especially if he knows that he can just wait out Bill to be a head coach if he really wanted to in New England. He wouldn't leave for another coordinator job. So, I mean, maybe they'd take a guy from the Patriots organization. I'm not saying it doesn't. It's just not going to be McDaniels. That's all. I mean, so Leftwich being fired wouldn't really signal to me that Brady has some say. What would signal to me that Brady has some say is who they hire, because if it's somebody that like you can tell like, oh, like that's a guy like Tom Brady likes, then you're like, okay, sure. But I mean, there's always the possibility. I've spoken with a couple people, not really sources, but just that think that, you know, maybe does Arians retire, and if Arians does retire, does Josh McDaniels end up becoming the head coach? Maybe. I don't think it's likely, but I would say it probably has like maybe a 6% chance of happening. Like, it's not very likely at all. But
I think that theory all just depends on how the Bucs play these last 4 games, because if they go 2-2, you know, and you finish 9-7, even if you barely make the playoffs, like I don't know. I just feel like, you know, that would definitely set it up a little bit more for Bruce to kind of walk out on his own terms. Yeah, and I think if they do, I'm not sure. I know that Brady definitely wouldn't want like Leftwich or Bowles to just be promoted. I think he would want to say, and his guy, he would choose McDaniels probably. Yeah. So I mean, we'll see what happens. That's a few weeks down the line. You know, like I said, I don't think it's likely anyway. So it's definitely an interesting conversation you can have though. Absolutely. Let's move on to. Sorry, James. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Real quick. One more guy I want to say, like they could maybe add as like some offensive consultant, kind of like in a Tom Moore role, is like maybe Jim Caldwell. Because I know he has a lot of ties to Arians with like the Colts and everything like that. And Arians just likes having a lot of his old buddies around him to help out. And Caldwell used to do a lot of stuff with that Colts offense with Peyton Manning. So they might bring him in just to try and help out Tom as well. Who knows?
Absolutely. There's a lot of names up in the air, but you know, like we said, the common theme here, it's all about how the Buccaneers finish this season. If we make the playoffs, then I don't think Bruce retires. I think the most likely situation at this point is that we're going to see Bruce Arians and both Tom Brady in Tampa Bay next season. I think the coaching staff is really going to look the same. I don't think we'll see a big lineup change there. Yeah, I'll say there's a 99% chance that Tom Brady's going to be back, and there's a 95% chance that Bruce Arians is going to be back. That's basically what I'll say. We'll leave it at that. But let's go ahead and move on to our next question. This comes from _Drew. And we're kind of previewing the Minnesota game. We'll go a little more in depth on this Thursday's show for the game preview. But as for now, we've got this question. Evan, do we see more pre-snap motion against Minnesota? Something that people have been talking about with this offense is, I guess, a little bit of a lack of pre-snap motion, depending on, you know, what you define pre-snap motion as. If you're looking at ESPN terms, then there's definitely been a lack. But the question is simple. Do we see more of it against Minnesota this Sunday? Well, I mean, if you're just looking at the season, the thing would be no. It's truly, you don't know, because I do think that they realize that this bye week came at the right time and that they need to change some things up. Yeah. But I don't know how, you know, big of a change that's going to be. So you might see a little bit more of it, but I don't think you're going to be seeing the Bucs, you know, in the next 4 games. They're not going to be a top 10 team in pre-snap motion. That's just not going to happen. I mean, Bruce Arians said he doesn't really like it, but I mean, Tom has basically put it in. So I think maybe Tom, you know, encourages Bruce to use it a little bit more. Maybe you see it a little bit more, but I think it's tough to give a straight answer just because you don't know. I don't think the offense is going to be completely different. Like it's still going to be the same offense. It's just gonna have to be just mixing it up between just not taking all them downfield shots and playing Tom Brady's game. That's what it's gonna have to be. It's still they're not throwing out an entire offensive scheme in a week. You know, like this is, if you're expecting to see a completely different thing with all these crazy things that don't, like, you're gonna be disappointed. So I think you might see a little bit more, but it's not gonna be like a huge change. And I wanted to toss this question out to both of you while we kind of talk about this offensive play calling. James, if you want to take this one first. But there was a quote that came out from BA, and he said plain and simple, well, Tom calls all the plays now. He picks the plays, we call them, we go out there and we try to execute. What does that mean to you? Because I'll be honest, like, I saw that quote and, like, yeah, it means that Tom is calling the plays, but, like, how long has it been like that? Is this a new development? Like, have they learned from past mistakes and they're letting Tom run the offense he's comfortable with? Like, what the hell does this vague quote mean to you? Because ESPN definitely thinks they have found the answer 100%, And I don't really buy it because, we look at Bruce Arians' track record, you tend to not believe a lot of the stuff that comes out of his mouth. And this is one of those things where, like, I just don't feel like I got anything from it. But James, what do you make of that?
Yeah, that's kind of confusing. I don't know how truthful that is. I'm not going to call Bruce Arians a liar or anything, but
I will.
That one is that one is kind of like I don't think he would intentionally lie and for something like that.
No, it's
what I mean.
It's coach talk. It's cover your ass kind of talk.
Right, but I mean that would be a little extreme to just kind of shift literally all that, because that means that any time somebody says a bad play, that's Bruce Arians saying, well, it was Tom's play, what do you want? That's too much.
That's the narrative they love right now, is that anytime Arians can blame Brady, that's what he does.
That is way too much. So I don't know. I mean, that one's just kind of more confusing to me, if anything, because I have seen still people criticize the play calling and they criticize Bruce Arians. In my opinion, they should be criticizing Byron Leftwich since he is the offensive play caller for this team. That's a weird one, and then I kind of couple that quote with the other quote that he gave where he said Tom's just kind of confused with certain coverages and stuff like that, and it's all kind of weird. I really don't know what to think about it right now.
So yeah, Tom can call the plays all he wants. Whose playbook is it? It's not Tom Brady's. He's picking the plays, but he's picking Bruce Arians' plays. He's picking the Bruce Arians plays that he likes the most. So even if he actually is calling the plays, it's still the same plays. Like it's still like the same downfield shots and stuff. It's just he's picking which ones he likes and which ones he doesn't. So do you like the 4 verticals route or do you like the post route? Which one? Oh, I like the post more. Okay, it's still a downfield shot.
Yeah.
Like I think that's what it means. And I mean, yeah, it is kind of confusing. Like, I don't know. It is kind of weird. It's tough to give a straight answer to that because it is weird. I don't know, and maybe that's where people are getting the tension things from. I don't know, but I believe that he has an influence in the offense. I just think he has to have more of one. That's all.
I think this bye week will give you a chance to let Tom have a little bit more of a say-so in that offensive game plan. That extra week means the world just because you have a little bit more time to peel everything back, find out what's working, find out what's not. You got an extra week to watch all the film, do all the research you need, and you have to believe that, Brady's going to be the guy talking in Arians' ear, because some of my favorite clips to come out of Tom Brady's career is like all of the, shots of him in the office with Belichick, and he's basically breaking down film and telling, like, there was one clip in particular where he was talking to Belichick about Brian Dawkins, and he's like, look, here's how you can beat him every play. The game has evolved. I'm sure Brady doesn't break it down quite as simply because he just doesn't have that chemistry with Arians like he did with Belichick after 18, 19, 20 seasons. But I have to believe that this bye week will give him a little bit more of a say-so. So we'll have to see what the game plan they come out with on offense is. But I guarantee you this Sunday against Minnesota, 1st and 10, we're going to see a handoff to Ronald Jones. What do you guys think? You want to make a little informal bet right here? First play of the game on offense is going to be a handoff to Ronald Jones. It's like an 85% chance.
See, I don't know what fans want because they want to give the ball to Ronald Jones more, but you don't want to run it on first down. Okay, so when do you want to run it? Like, you want to run it on every third down? You just want to be predictable and say, oh, we're going to pass on first down, run on second down, then pass on third down. Like, you can have it one way or the other. Like, either Jones gets more carries, which would mean more runs on first down. Like, you can't have it both ways. Like, I don't know.
I've definitely, my head kind of hurts now from a week-to-week basis because every play it seems like I see, that was so predictable. And it's like, well, what? What does that mean? Pass on first down, so predictable. Another first down. A run on first down. God, that was so predictable. And it's like, what do you do then? I don't get it. You criticize a pass, you criticize a run. It's very confusing. I'm still a stickler for giving Ronald Jones the ball more.
What they need to do is use more play action. That's what they need to do more.
Right. And that's kind of an interesting thing that maybe they have asked it, maybe they haven't asked it, but I want to hear somebody ask Bruce Arians about how, if they want to run more play action now for the remainder of the season. And then hear Bruce Arians' answer to that. Because if he says something along the lines of like, oh yeah, maybe we are going to be incorporating that more, then that's something I'd be interested to see. Like motion and stuff like that before the snap. Like you said, Evan, Bruce doesn't like that much. But play action, I mean, that's something that they could incorporate more with just a week to get ready, because they already have play action in their playbook. So
yeah,
that's something that might be the change. We'll just have to wait and see.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and move on to this next question. We'll shift gears here a little bit. This comes from Bliss_full519, who right now has the best chance at an NFL Honors Award on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster. Evan, who is your pick?
Probably like Levante David for Defensive Player of the Year, or Antoine Winfield for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't think either is going to happen. But
there is a guy that you had brought up, and I think there's a lot of worthy guys. I think Levante is a good name. The guy for me, and I know that you said this exact statement here, but it doesn't work this way. He's not going to win it because of the position he plays. Yeah. But rookie right tackle Tristan Wirfs has been the best rookie in the NFL this year, and I don't think there's any argument there. Like, I really don't. Call us biased, but like, I think if anybody deserves Rookie of the Year, it's got to be big number 78.
Yeah, he should be the Offensive Rookie of the Year. If you're just looking at tape and like everything, even if you like PFF, if you don't like PFF, you can look at their grades. He's one of the highest ones. He shows up well on tape. Yeah, he should be the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Unfortunately, for any offensive lineman that plays well, like you said, just if you're not a quarterback, running back, or wide receiver, you ain't getting it. And wide receivers even rarely get it. So if you're not a quarterback or running back, you're not getting it.
Yeah. Who do you think, James?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to go with Antoine Winfield Jr. for Defensive Rookie of the Year, if anything. I mean, Chase Young, I mean, he's still making a ton of plays, but he's kind of cooled off. You're not seeing as much talk around him in terms of him cooling off and stuff like that. Antoine Winfield Jr., by the way, has cooled off a lot in his own right. Mm-hmm. He gets maybe a couple more interceptions, gets a couple more takeaways. I think he may have it locked up, considering also the Bucs are a winning team. And the Redskins just aren't.
Jeremy Chin right now probably has it locked up. So.
Okay, Chin as well.
Those two touchdowns in 11 seconds or whatever.
That's true. That's true. So I would say probably Antoine Winfield Jr. may be the closest. I don't know if he, again, he's probably not going to win that. Levante David, yeah, I mean, he may be close, but he's cooled off a lot as well the past month. Even Tom Brady, he's cooled off a lot for the MVP conversation. I think Aaron Rodgers.
After that Vegas game, there was some real talk of him being an MVP candidate, and that one went away. So
yeah, the past month. I mean, now Aaron Rodgers has been playing absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I mean, and a guy like Russell Wilson, who is everybody thought was an MVP lock, has now cooled off. So
yeah.
Right. So nobody's really that close, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think when you look at Defensive Player of the Year, the number one guy that everybody goes to is going to be Aaron Donald. I think he's got it locked up again. He's just such a force. And, I really think
TJ Watt might have a case.
Yeah, TJ Watt's actually right there neck and neck with him. He's having a really good year, too, with that Pittsburgh defense. But when it comes to the Bucs, I really think your rookies are the only guys with a shot of bringing something home. I think everybody else will be just overlooked a little bit, just because of that cool period they've had and, the way that the season shakes out. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Let's move on to the next question. This comes from Kevin Gergenand on Instagram. He says, what move do you think should or should not have been made this offseason? So this was an offseason to remember for the Buccaneers, without a doubt. A lot of big moves, a lot of surprising moves. I'm just going to say this right here, right now. I think the Buccaneers probably shouldn't have signed LaShawn McCoy, knowing that we're not going to use him. But hindsight's always 20/20. Something else, though, that really concerned us, both Evan and I coming into this year, was just the lack of rotational pass rush. And I think at this point in the season, that's really starting to bite this team in the ass. So an extra pass rusher would have really helped. I think that's something they should have focused on a little better.
Yep. I'm going to do two moves here, and that might be cheating. But
more content, go for it.
One, re-signing Ndamukong Suh to a 1-year, $8 million deal. It's just he's been fine. Like he has had a better year this year than he did last year.
He's played above my expectations for sure.
Yeah, but for $8 million, I don't know. Has he been $8 million player to you?
he's had some game-changing plays. I think of the forced fumble against LA.
But has he? Wait,
Yes.
what forced fumble against LA?
The one back at the very end. I guess they messed up the handoff, but it was what turned the tide. The comeback against the Chargers.
Right before halftime.
Yeah, gave the Bucs the ball back. Really started that comeback early. That was a big Indomitian play.
He started off the year really good.
He did.
The first 4 or 5 games, and then he just cooled off. And then versus Kansas City was a decent game, but then probably the first weeks 1 through 5 he was good. Week 6 through 10, week 6 through 11, basically he was irrelevant, and then week 12 he didn't play bad. But
I will answer your question with yes. I think he's been an $8 million player because with Vita Vea out, he is their only hope at any sort of pressure in the middle right there.
So I just think that they could have used that better on either splitting that money between 2 pass rushers, or getting a younger player there on the interior defensive line. And the other one I'm going to say is drafting Keyshawn Vaughn in the 3rd round, when that should have been either a pass rusher or a backup offensive lineman or something.
Yeah, I agree with that. That would be my one for the shouldn't have, the Keyshawn Vaughn one. It does feel like kind of a wasted pick. I'm going to say they probably shouldn't have made that type of move. I like Keyshawn Vaughn, by the way. I think he can still be a good running back for this team, but probably shouldn't have brought him in if you're not going to use him. And in terms of the moves that they should have made, I have 2. One is they should have re-signed Carl Nass. I know he did get a lot of money from the Raiders, but
you could have gave him the money you gave Sue.
Yeah, that's
not
fair.
Right. Sue and
it's proving now that without Nassib, I mean, the rotation at pass rusher has just been non-existent, literally non-existent. So I think that was a huge blow to the pass rush. And then the second one is they should have brought in more of a veteran presence in that cornerback room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel that one was necessary. There's still plenty of veteran cornerbacks out there that you can still bring in. But I mean, in the offseason, you could have had a chance to bring in a guy who probably wouldn't even have cost that much money, who could play, even if he's your 4th cornerback. Yeah. You bring him in and then he can play inside or outside, whatever you need to do. Have a versatile guy like that who's been in the league, say, 6-7 years, something like that. That would be very nice, just to have a guy where, okay, SMB struggling this game or Jamel Dean struggling this game. Okay, let's put our veteran out there because he's been here before. Those are 2 moves that I were to say that would have helped out your defense a lot, is re-signing Carl Nassib and then bringing in actual veteran cornerback who could help out.
I'll actually give 2 more, actually, just a quick one. Just a pass catching running back, whoever it is. I don't have a name. Just a running back that can catch the ball consistently. Doesn't be great, just consistently. Should have added one. And I'll give Gronkowski some credit here, because if you would have asked me this in October, I would have said that they shouldn't have traded for Gronkowski. And now I'm saying that it's smart that they traded for Gronkowski, because with the injury to O.J. Howard, Gronkowski has looked much better as the season's gone on. Weeks 1 through 5, he was kind of like a no-show. And then, with that Packers game, week 6, when he got his first touchdown, he really started to get on a roll. So now he's proving his worth. I still don't think he's worth $9 million that they're paying him, but I think if he's back next year, it won't be at that number. It'll be at a lower number. But he's definitely changed my mind. So that's one more. That's one more should have, and one more that I'm actually glad that they did. So.
And speaking of just Gronk's, productivity these last few games, he's exploded, man. I think he's top 5 in tight end yards right now. He had that 100-yard
he's having
game.
a solid season.
Especially after, the first 5 weeks you had mentioned, he wasn't really showing up. He has come to be more than a reliable target for Brady. Those guys just, rekindling an old flame right there. But definitely glad that Gronk is here, and I'm glad that he has stepped up in the absence of O.J. Howard. He has absolutely been a relief at the tight end position. Let's go ahead and move on to our final question of the show. This comes from BLP_05. And we're looking ahead to the playoffs here. Don't want to, write ourselves off too early because anything can happen. But I hate to say that we feel confident about the Bucs making the playoffs because they haven't done it in a decade and a half. But I think it's safe to say that everybody here has a pretty good feeling the Buccaneers will be playing football in January. So this question has to do with that. From BLP. With the Giants looking stronger every single week, just beat Seattle, and the problems they caused us the last time we played, who do you guys think would be the most favorable team to face in the first round of the playoffs? And then who do you hope to avoid at all costs? Well, I'll tell you, the team that I hope to avoid is fucking New Orleans, dude. And
It's
I gotta
gotta
put
be
the
New
F-bomb
Orleans.
there
It has to be New Orleans.
like, they just know us. Like, it just really doesn't feel like there is any possible way that the Buccaneers match up with New Orleans in the playoffs and it is a competitive game. I don't know what it is.
In New Orleans, there's no way.
I don't know why it is so frustrating to think this way because, we're throwing in the towel before the game even happens, but the Bucs this season have done nothing to prove otherwise that the Saints will kick our ass the next time they play. So the team that I want nothing to do with in the postseason is New Orleans. And with their troubled history in the postseason, hopefully if the Buccaneers win their first round game, the Saints won't be there in the second round to greet us. But yeah, Evan, who do you think is a favorable matchup for Tampa Bay? And then who is also your team to stay away from if it wasn't New Orleans?
Well, it is New Orleans. So I'll give you my second place one, dude. I'm not gonna think they can beat New Orleans until they actually do. Like
exactly.
Even next year,
they haven't shown us anything that leads me to believe that they would win in the rematch. Well, the rematch
exactly.
in the playoffs.
Whether it's like even if it's a preseason game, like this is a loss. Like they're not beating them. So my most favorable matchup, just based on like scheme and stuff, might be Green Bay. Honestly, because I feel like you can still run on them effectively. And I know Rodgers is hot, but like the Packers they didn't get a number 2 wide receiver. So it's like Devontae Adams. I know a lot of their other guys have stepped up, but
Lazard has really been really hot on fantasy boards these past few
weeks. Yeah, Lazard and Valdez-Scantling have been good, but I feel like just scheme-wise, of the teams that are currently leading their divisions, that's what I'm looking at. Other teams that are currently leading their divisions. The most favorable, and I didn't want to say the Giants because I felt like it was a cop-out.
I think any NFC East team feels like a cop-out.
I mean, yeah, so if you had to say like literally most favorable, it's probably the NFC East team. But I wanted to choose one of the bigger boys in the playoff race. So I'll say Green Bay. For the least one, if I had to choose a second one, probably the Rams.
Yeah.
Because McVay just gave them fits all night, and the Rams defense is playing like one of the best in the NFL. So I think that would probably be number 1's the Saints, number 2 is the Rams. If the Bucs can avoid those guys, and then get an NFC East opponent round 1, it would be very good. So, and they got to get the 5th seed to do it. So you're gonna have to win out in order to get the 5th seed, which could happen. I think there was a question. I think that was what games do they need to win? Yeah. Well, if you want the 5th seed, you got to win out. That's pretty clear. But this game coming up is an important one, and if the Bucs beat Minnesota this week and the Cardinals lose this week to the Giants, who've been playing well, I'll give them credit, the Bucs would basically clinch a spot in the playoffs. Not officially, but basically would. James, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
You're good. That's a tough question to answer. I guess I would say, because I don't want to say an NFC East team, but I guess I would have to say the Green Bay Packers by default as a team that we'd want to play because we saw after that first quarter in the game when we played them in the regular
Seahawks,
season.
I think they match up well with too.
Yeah, in terms of teams, I would say either Green Bay or Seattle, depending on what happens over there in the NFC West. We have to play one of these division leaders. I would say one of those guys. And then in terms of a team you wouldn't want to face, I mean, the Saints is the easy answer because good Lord. Rhett, you put it perfectly. I mean, this team, I'm going to assume that they have no chance of beating the Saints if we play them in the playoffs because they have fallen so flat both times.
They're in their heads. They are completely in their heads.
Yeah, and it's absolute insanity. So hey, if the Vikings make the playoffs and then they win in round 1 and then go to play the Saints, let's go. Let's see round number 4, whatever round it is, But again, if I had to pick a second team, the Rams would probably be up there because, I mean, yeah, Cooper Kupp murdered us. That was absolutely terrible. I guess I'm going to take it. Does it have to be an NFC team? I mean, because playoffs, I mean, you could go all the way to the Super Bowl, right?
I mean, you could say Super Bowl if you wanted to. I think they match.
What is it?
I just never want better with Pittsburgh than Kansas City, though.
I just never want to see Tyreek Hill ever again in my entire life.
Yeah, if the Bucs want to win a Super Bowl, they're going to have to play Pittsburgh and not Kansas City.
Yeah, because
good. So?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, well,
100%.
yeah, definitely. Well, no, definitely. The way that I took that is that you would say
I don't-
Pittsburgh is
oh,
more of
no.
a shoo-in for the Super Bowl. I think Pittsburgh is
No.
the most suspect undefeated team I have seen in quite some time.
Yeah, they're good, but they're not like a true undefeated
They're
team.
good.
The
They're
Steelers
just not
are a
11-0
good team.
good.
Yeah, the Steelers are a good team, but I mean they're playing the Washington football team as we speak. Like, come on. So yeah, I think Kansas City's a lock to make the Super Bowl. I'm just saying for Bucs purposes, they have a better shot at beating the Steelers than they do the Chiefs. If it's the Chiefs, you might as well already hand the Lombardi Trophy because Mahomes is going to show up for that game and it's going to be brutal.
Yeah.
I would say though too. I mean, I know Evan, you said the Bucs do match up well against the Seattle Seahawks, but man, I would not put it past Russell Wilson and
I
Pete
know.
Carroll to just work something to just ruin our
Oh
lives.
yeah, I know. I'm just saying that the Seahawks just don't have enough talent on defense. So
Right. You know, and yeah,
they've been improving, but like they're still against the Bucs offense. The Seahawks, I think, would have a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
right. So
Especially
yeah,
since they don't have a single pass rush, and when you can't hit Brady, it's bad.
right. So I would say like I would definitely say Saints are number one. Number two, it's kind of a mix of a couple of teams, but Packers would probably be a favorable matchup given our most recent history with them, and then maybe the Seahawks too.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we kind of wrap things up here, I just want to remind you, because I forgot to do so earlier, that this podcast is brought to you by our friends over at betonline.ag. From game spreads and totals to team, player, and coaching props, BetOnline gives you more options to wager than any other place online. And of course, they've always got the online casino. If you want to go spend your money over there, it never, ever closes. So make sure you head to betonline.ag today and take advantage of all the great sign-up bonuses. BetOnline, your online sportsbook expert. There. Now they can't tell me I didn't read it this week, because I did. I just waited all the way till the end. Not on purpose. Normally we're supposed to read that in the first 5 minutes, but, you know, stuff happens. It's the bye week. We're all kind of rebounding here. But, ladies and gentlemen, with all of that being said, that's just about going to do it for this episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. First off, thank you so much for submitting your questions. We really do appreciate you. Would have been cool to get some voicemails. I don't know, buck up. 813-433-0323 is always open if you want to leave us a voicemail. Any questions, comments, or concerns, we will be here to address them. 813-433-0323 is the hotline number if you're feeling brave enough to do so. But thank you to everybody on Instagram who follows us over there who submitted questions. Everybody over on Bucs_Daily as well who put those questions in. Pretty sure that's where 100% of those questions came from, but that's all we'll mention. Speaking of social media, make sure you get at the show over there. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Thank you to our guest, James, Mr. Bucs Nation. You guys know him. You love him. But just in case you hadn't heard, James, where can people find your content?
YouTube here at Mr. Bucs. Well, yes, on YouTube at MrBucsNation. Exciting times, man. Just finished up the week on the TB12 method. I have a Tristan Wirfs video coming out tonight as well, talking about if he could be a future left tackle for this team. And yeah, some exciting stuff coming up. And we've got our next game against the Vikings, so we'll have content coming out all week.
Hell yeah. Make sure you guys go check it out. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube as well. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And click that little bell icon so you get notified anytime we upload a show or we go live with a hotline show. Whatever the case may be, lots of great content on our YouTube channel. You can get notified by clicking the little bell. It's so easy and it doesn't cost you a dime. Follow myself on social media, Instagram and Twitter. Both of those are Rhettakus, RHETTAKUS. And then you can find my co-host, Evan, on social media, Instagram and Twitter. Instagram is Bucs_Daily, the #1 Buccaneers fan page on Instagram. And you can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. Before we sign off, guys, just the common understanding that we need to come to is that the Bucs need to keep the pedal down all fourth quarter. Or all 4 quarters, right? Not just the fourth quarter.
This is like kind of an inside joke here. Not many will get, but yeah, just keep your foot on the gas. You know, we don't even need to explain it. Just keep your foot on the gas. 4 quarters. You know, that's all you gotta do.
Well, I'll tell you what, dude. I disagree.
If
with
they
you there.
don't do it, they may lose.
Yeah. Well, I disagree with you. I think the Bucs need to keep the foot on the gas all 4 quarters, and they should win this one.
Well, I disagree with that because if they keep it all 4 quarters, they'll win.
Yeah. Twitter in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. Thank you to our guest, James, for jumping on here with us. Make sure you go check out his content on YouTube at MrBucsNation. I am Rhett Matthew, signing off from my co-host, Evan Wanish. We'll talk to you guys on Thursday for the preview show. Until then, go Bucs.